ghosts and ghouls, demons and aliens, monsters and worse, only here on Ghost or What, the best channel for original scary stories. Our next story is Horror Story at an Airport. Hey, Grandpa. Melanie sat beside me on the couch. Did you ever come across any paranormal encounter that you could never forget? Well, I hesitated. Come on, think about it, she insisted. Although you do not need to remember, I thought to myself. I was sitting in the living lounge in my son's home. I had gone to their home for some days, and my granddaughter was sitting with me. She was telling me about her routine when suddenly, she jumped to paranormal phenomena and asked me about some incident. When she asked me, I had a clear memory of some years ago, but I was reluctant to repeat that all over again. Actually, there is one. I wiped my forehead with a handkerchief. Then tell me, she became excited. I want to know. I nodded and closed my eyes for a while. Then I started telling my tale, which I never understood. The story goes 50 years back when I was studying in college. Although I was getting a scholarship, I still had to pay some part of my tuition fee. To make money, I worked everywhere. I had worked in a bar, in a store as a waiter. Those days, I was working as a sweeper in a small airport in Wales. Usually, my duty timings were after 9 in the evening because I was working another job after my college. It used to be very quiet during my working hours, and to be honest, I used to enjoy that. So this one time, I was working my shift, like I always did. I was working in the lounge and had just moped the floor when I saw a passenger arriving in the lounge. I looked behind him and saw the line of footprints all over the floor. I felt pissed, and I looked at his feet. They were completely covered in the mud. I was annoyed, but I stayed silent and went all the way back and wiped all the prints. Later, when I was in the washroom and cleaning it, I saw him again. He had made a complete mess in the washroom. I went to him and politely told him if his shoes were dirty and if it was possible for him to change those. He looked at his shoes and then said to me that he did not have any more pairs of shoes. His tone was filled with guilt. I also felt bad for asking, so I asked him if I could take his shoes and then wash them. He agreed. As I cleaned those up, I realized that those were vintage. The last pair the manufacturers made was 50 years ago. As I returned his shoes, I asked him about the shoes. I told him how I loved watching my dad wearing these shoes when everything used to be good in our house. I asked him where he had purchased them. He told me that the shoes were his, and he had purchased them firsthand. I did not believe him because he was hardly 30, so those shoes were not his. That was confirmed. Anyway, I moved away from there as I felt he did not want to talk. But there was something in that guy that I could not move my eyes away from him. After looking at his shoes, I was continuously checking all of his belongings, and nothing was from the current time. Everything was old. I wondered if those things must mean a lot to him. I was surprised at how he was able to keep these things in good condition. I continued with my work. Then I found him again. He was standing near the reception table and looking at the desk with amusement. I wondered what he was looking at, as the receptionist was not present, so I went towards him. I asked him if he wanted something, but he pointed at the phone set and asked me what that was. I looked at him with a bewildered expression. I asked him again what he needed to know. He pointed straight at the set again and repeated his question. I told him what it was and he looked amused. He told me that they had a different kind of set. I asked him more about it and then realized that he was talking about those sets that had been extinct for ages. They were now only found in the store for decoration items. I asked him where he lives, and he told me that he lives nearby, but did not tell me more about it. I was feeling suspicious about him, so I asked him about his way of living and his routine. He was being very careful, but then he accidentally said that he was working for British troops, placed in the subcontinent. I looked at him with my eyes filled with a mixed feeling of horror and confusion. I asked him which era he thought it was, but he did not answer me. But I could clearly see perspiration drops on his forehead, and he quickly got up from his seat and almost ran towards the far end. He sat there quietly in an isolated place. I had developed my suspicions, so I was spying on him without him noticing me. Suddenly, a boy in his teens came and sat beside him. He was listening to music in his Walkman. That strange man looked at the Walkman with his eyes filled with excitement. He asked the boy something, and he gave him strange looks. After watching him for almost an hour, I came toward him. His expressions changed from excitement to uncomfortable as he saw me. I came to him and asked him if I was positively sure that you were not from this era. What I was confused about was how it was possible. In the beginning, he completely denied it and responded that I was foolish and irrational. But then I threatened him to the police that if he lied to me, I would hand him over to the police, and then they would do whatever they would feel like. He let out a sigh of surrender. Then he told me that he was about to confront a big secret, but took a promise from me that I would stay silent about that until he was still there. I agreed to it and promised that I would keep silent. What he started to tell me left me shocked. He told me that he was coming back from India and everything was fine until he landed. But as he crossed the door, he realized that he had forgotten something, and he turned around to go back in. But as soon as he entered again, the lightning struck, and he was there where everything looked different. After listening to all this, my mouth dropped open, and I asked him from which year was he talking, to which he replied 1890. He saw my expressions and asked me for the year, with concerned expressions, to which I told him that was 2020. Suddenly, I saw outside from the window that there was a great thunderstorm. He, without even thinking, ran towards the exit door to the runway. The police were after him. Suddenly, the light struck and he vanished. Everyone was perplexed at what just had happened, but kept looking for him for another hour. I still remember his face and his voice and always wonder if he reached his time or not. But some things always remain a mystery. Did you think that was the end? The terror never ends. Subscribe to our channel to hear more horror stories, only on Ghost or What.